The next reading about ethnocentric communication applies the three components of communication that Barnett talks about, including coherence, coordination, coherence, and mystery. So he uses ethnocentric communication as an example that embodies much of the communication that we operate within. And he uses the term ethnocentric not so much in the way as far as um, perceiving someone's culture through our own cultural lenses, but he uses the term more to describe the communication that we have within families, within close communities or neighborhoods. And so he talks about ethnocentric communication on different levels. He talks about the traditional kind of notions that we have within these tightly knit um, families or communities, if you will. And he talks about how we create these certain scripts or patterns of which we operate ethnocentrically. And through these patterns, we establish coordination, coherence, and mystery. Examples of that can include ways that we specifically communicate within our families. It's not something that's questioned, we just do it. For example, when we sit at the dinner table, we all know where we sit, we all know how to communicate in those patterns that are established. And so the same thing can be applied in a larger context of society, that we adhere to this certain kind of ethnocentric communication or patterns and scripts of how we operate. So ethnocentric communication involves a distinct group of people, but he also talks about those who are outside of that, or as he described in the reading, as non-native to that ethnocentric communication. And so what often happens is we estrange those people, or we label them as non-native, and we also have a way or pattern of describing who they are. Sometimes it's in a positive way, and most of the time it's not so much. It's in a negative kind of approach, because they often are seen as not only different or non-native, but differing in their views, and they are different. Their ethnocentric communication is going to vary from the one that we have. And so, an example of this that I was thinking of was how we have native people here in Hawaii, and we have people who come from elsewhere to live here, and that presents an interesting situation and a perfect example for ethnocentric communication, because here in the islands we have a certain idea, but then at the same time when other people have come, we've adopted some of those ideas, and vice versa. So when Western contact first came to Hawaii, we have a shift in certain values and the way that we understand the world around us. So for example, when we have Captain Cook and the first Western contact here in the islands, it presented kind of a moral dilemma, I guess you could say, of how, and conflict of how the native people in their own ethnocentric communication, and those who were non-native, they came, and it that was the first initial contact of that kind, and we can see how it was difficult to communicate, but also that it created a situation where you have different patterns, different scripts that played out. and eventually, it works to have Hawaii, change to be more westernized. But at the same time, you have the non-natives who come and who are never really adopted into our ethnocentric communication as other notions have developed. Examples of the term haole, how we describe those non-natives, and how we today perceive them in either a positive or negative light. These are all examples of how ethnocentric communication fits into that model of coordination, coherence, and mystery. We operate within these patterns and shifts, and it creates, family, familial, community, forms of communication within our tight little groups, and it also filters out into a larger society. Alright? Thank you.